Hi, my friends. Today I want to share a new story with you. I hope you enjoy it. The message came just as I was leaving a meeting in Berlin. I had just closed a multi-million euro deal with a fintech company that would help us become leaders in the European market. Then my phone buzzed. Subject: the house is sold. I stopped right there in the marble lobby, my heart sinking. My name is Elina Brooks. I'm 35 years old, and I run a powerful business consulting firm in Zurich. For 11 years, I've helped governments and big companies avoid collapse and recover billions. But at that moment, none of it mattered. The house, they sold it, and it was supposed to be mine. We got a strong offer, much better than the small down payment you made, my mother wrote in the email. So we accepted. Everything's signed and done. I just stood there, staring at the message. For 5 years, I paid the mortgage, fixed it up, paid for insurance, everything. But the house was still under my parents' name. They told me it would just be that way until I was more settled. Now, while I was closing the biggest deal of my career, they sold the house behind my back. I walked into a quiet hallway and called them. The phone rang twice. "Oh, Elina," my mom said cheerfully. "Did you see the email? Isn't it great news?" "Mom," I said, trying to stay calm. "That was my house." "Oh, don't be so dramatic," she replied. "Your father and I needed the money. Barton and Company isn't doing well, and you're always flying around Europe with that little job of yours." Little job. If only she knew the importance of the papers in my briefcase. If only she saw the German minister shake my hand and ask for help with their national pension system. "Where am I supposed to stay when I come back?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. "You can stay here," she said. "Your old room is just like you left it. It'll be like you're 17 again." As if that was a good thing. Back then, they always compared me to my brother Marcus, their favorite. He's now the COO of the same company they just admitted is struggling. They told me to marry well and leave business to Marcus. I built everything on my own, and they still took from me. "I have to go," I said and hung up. I went back into the meeting room where the deal waited for my signature. In 2 weeks, Barton and Company would face a surprise audit, ordered by their newest board member. The person who just bought their biggest competitor. Me. They sold my house. But soon, they'll find out who they sold it to. And next quarter, when my parents walked into their own boardroom, nervously fixing their suits, they'd see me sitting at the head of the table, their new boss. Sometimes, revenge doesn't need shouting or a big courtroom scene. Sometimes, it's just about smart timing, a quiet plan, and taking your seat where it matters most. While my parents were busy selling my house to save their failing logistics company, I was in Berlin closing the biggest business deal of my life. You see, Barton and Company, the company my parents built and always put first, wasn't just struggling. It was crashing. And I knew exactly why. For 18 months, I had been quietly buying up their debt through hidden companies and shell firms. Every unpaid bill, every missed payment, it all came to me. They thought I was just running a small advisory firm in Zurich. But in truth, I was Elina Brooks, CEO of Veritas Capital, one of the most powerful takeover firms in Europe. We didn't just save businesses. We broke them down, rebuilt them, or used their pieces to grow stronger companies. Then my phone buzzed. It was a text from Marcus. "Mom told you about the house." "Sorry, sis, but business is business." Business is business. That's what they always said. When they refused to help with my student loans because Marcus needed startup money. When they took the money from my childhood savings without asking. And now when they sold my home behind my back. I replied with one word. Understood. Then I turned to Lucas Hoffman, my legal partner in Berlin. "Are the contracts ready?" I asked in German. He smiled. "Everything is done, Frau Brooks. By Friday, you'll own 78% of Barton and Company." I signed the papers calmly. My family always mistook my silence for weakness. But this wasn't just a business move. It was payback. Soon, I'd legally own the company they gave everything to. Even me. Even my house. I turned to my assistant. "Book me a flight to London," I said. "It's time I visit my parents." The next few weeks flew by in meetings, reports, and financial reviews. I moved into a penthouse in London, overlooking the Thames. I ignore my mother's calls and Marcus's emails. Let them think I was sad about the house. Let them believe I was still the quiet daughter running a little firm in Europe. They had no idea what was coming. The morning everything came together, I stood in front of the mirror in my penthouse. I wore a sharp navy blazer, and my hair was neatly pinned. The woman in the mirror wasn't the disappointment they once ignored. She was the storm they never expected. I picked up my briefcase, holding the final documents, and headed to the headquarters of Barton & Company. It was in that building years ago that my father once told me, "You'll never understand real business, Elina." As I walked in, a security guard nodded. "Welcome back, Miss Brooks." Funny how things change. He was already on my payroll, like many other people in the company they still thought they controlled. The elevator ride felt long. As I went up, I remembered everything. The years of being ignored. The looks when I spoke about business. The speeches. The lies. The day they sold my house. It all led to this moment. When the doors opened, I walked into a hallway filled with portraits of the company's founders. I heard my mother's laugh from the boardroom. Light, fake, nervous. They were all there, my parents and Marcus, probably talking about the surprise takeover. I fixed my cuffs and moved forward. Time to show them who I really am. Right before I walked in, I paused. I heard my father's voice. "This must be a mistake. Some unknown firm can't just take over Barton & Company. We built this company from the ground up." Then Marcus said, "I checked it 3 times. Veritas Capital owns 78% of our stock. They've taken on most of our debt too. We have to meet their CEO today," Marcus muttered. My mother tried to stay cheerful. "Oh, I'm sure it's just some paperwork. We've been through worse. We always find a way." That's when I opened the boardroom door. Everyone turned to look. My father frowned, clearly annoyed. "Elina, this meeting is for board members only. Whatever this drama is about the house, it can wait." I walked in calmly and confidently. "Actually, I'm right on time." I placed my leather briefcase on the table. "You're expecting the CEO of Veritas Capital at 10 a.m., correct?" Marcus checked his watch. "Yes, but she's not." "She is," I interrupted. I opened the briefcase and pulled out the documents. "I'm the CEO of Veritas Capital." Silence filled the room. My mother dropped her glass. It shattered on the floor. My father's face turned pale. Marcus looked like he'd seen a ghost. "That can't be true," he said, stunned. "You run a small consulting business. You can't be this." My father tried to jump in, but I spoke first. "Can't be what? Smart? Driven? Too much of a failure to beat you at your own game." I laid the paperwork out in front of them. "It's all here. Veritas Capital owns most of Barton & Company, including the board seats. As of this morning, I'm in charge." My father reached for the papers, hands shaking. "This has to be a joke." "No," I said. "This is what happens when you underestimate the wrong daughter." "A joke," I continued, still calm. "Like selling my house behind my back, or taking my education money without telling me, or calling me a failure while I built a global company in secret." My father opened his mouth, but my mother spoke first. "We needed that money to save the business." "To protect your legacy?" I said. I looked around the room and gave a short, cold laugh. "Take a good look. This isn't your legacy anymore. It's mine. Veritas Capital doesn't just save companies. We fix them. And Barton & Company? You've been draining it for years. You can't do this," my father said, voice cracking. "We're your parents." I met his eyes. "Business is business, remember?" The phrase hung in the air. The same line they'd used to ignore me, to justify hurting me. I looked at the board members. Some were smiling, finally seeing a change after years of bad leadership. "As of today, things are changing," I said. "Marcus, you're no longer COO. That ends now." He stared at me in shock. "Dad, you're stepping down as CEO. Mom, your role as head of communications is done." "You're firing us?" Marcus said. "Your own family?" I remembered all the birthdays I missed to help them. The vacations I skipped to cover for them. The way they laughed when I pitched my first business idea. No, I said. I'm giving you the same chance you gave me to earn your place. I opened a personnel file. Marcus, there's an entry-level spot in accounts receivable. My mother gasped. Dad, we're hiring door-to-door sales reps. You'd be perfect. He looked sick. And, Mom, the front desk needs a receptionist. Someone friendly and good with details. She burst into tears. Or, I said, closing the folder, you can all clear out your desks by 5 p.m. Your choice. You ungrateful. My father started. I raised a hand. Careful. You're talking to your boss now. I picked up my documents and turned to leave. Then I paused at the door. Oh, about the house you sold? They looked up quickly. I bought the company that bought it. The deed will be back in my name by tomorrow. Their faces were a mix of shock, confusion, and disbelief. After all those years of being ignored and pushed aside, I had taken back everything they tried to take from me and more. I turned to the board. We meet again tomorrow at 9 a.m. sharp. Be ready with your reports. Then I looked over my shoulder straight at my family. For those of you still working here, that is, the rest can pick up their things from security. I walked out with my head held high and my power still strong. I was no longer the invisible daughter. No one could underestimate me anymore. The sound of my heels on the marble floor was loud and clear, like closing the last page of a story. Behind me, I heard the chaos. My mother is quietly crying. My father was shouting angrily. Marcus stayed silent, shocked. But for the first time in my life, their noise didn't bother me. They couldn't reach me anymore. I had built something they never thought I could. Something they never wanted me to build. Now, standing at the top of my success, I showed them who I really was. Not the daughter they ignored, but the force they never saw coming. My phone buzzed. A message from Lucas Hoffman in Berlin. Congrats, Mrs. Brooks. How did it go? I smiled as I stepped into the elevator. Better than I expected. Time to rebuild Barton and Company my way. As the elevator doors closed, I looked at the company logo in brass. They had chosen that name, that building, and that image over me again and again. Now they would watch me turn it into something better than they ever could. Because sometimes, the best revenge isn't just proving them wrong. It's showing them what they never noticed. I stepped into the cool London air. The building was mine now. A symbol of everything they tried to take from me. The next morning, I sat in the leather chair in what used to be my father's office. Sunlight shone on the desk and showed my reflection in the glass behind it. My office now. I picked up the morning paper and laughed softly. The headline read, Veritas Capital buys Barton and Company. Unknown CEO reveals identity in boardroom surprise. Unknown CEO. If only they knew. If only they understood how long I'd been preparing for this. The years of quiet work. The silence. The plan. The fact that they didn't know who I was? That was my biggest advantage. To them, I was just the daughter running a small consulting firm in Switzerland. But being underestimated gives you the perfect chance to strike when no one is watching. I picked up my phone and called. Hi, Clara. Yes, I want to sell a property. The townhouse on Renhurst Lane. The one recently sold by the Brooks family. Pause. Oh, don't worry. I own it now. Bought the company that owns it last week. I lean back in my chair. The phone is still open. Listed at full price. No family discount. Sometimes, karma shows up as a scandal. Sometimes as a lawsuit. Sometimes, she walks into your boardroom wearing heels, holding the deed to everything you once lost. If you've ever been ignored, underestimated, or told you can't, you know this feeling. And if you've made it this far in my story, thank you. Really. Because this wasn't just about a company or a house. It was about taking back my voice. My value. Everything they said I couldn't have. So let me ask you, have you ever been underestimated by your own family? Have you ever worked quietly, building something amazing, while others only saw failure? Tell me your story. Leave a comment, not just for me, but for anyone who needs to hear it. Let's remind each other. Quiet strength is still strength. And you don't have to shout to be powerful. You just have to keep going. If this story touched you, please subscribe. Not just to help me share more stories, but because every subscriber is one more voice saying, I believe in people like Elina. People who rise, not to get revenge, but because they have a purpose. If I've learned one thing, it's this. You don't owe anyone proof you can do great things. You only owe it to yourself. To become everything they said you couldn't. Work hard. Be smart. Be patient. Because the best revenge isn't really revenge. It's becoming the person they never expected. And when that moment comes, walk into the room like you own it. Because maybe, just maybe, you do.